I spiked the punch with enough truth serum to make the whole damn family spill their guts. Right there in the middle of Mom's 60th. Watching as my brother's smug grin cracked like cheap porcelain when he realized the empire he'd stolen from me was about to crumble under his polished loafers. It started with a single seating chart fuck-up, or so they thought, but I'd been plotting this gut punch for 5 years. Ever since they pinned Dad's embezzlement on me and shipped me off to rot in a nowhere town like I was the family trash. By the time the toasts were over, I'd own the room, the business, and their souls. But not before they all choked on the secret I'd buried deeper than Dad's offshore accounts. I wasn't the victim. I was the architect of it all. I remember the exact moment it all ignited. 5 years back. In the sterile glow of a Manhattan boardroom that smelled like overpriced cologne and desperation. I was 25, fresh out of Wharton with an MBA that could have bought me a corner office anywhere. But instead, I was Haley freaking Whitaker, the golden child of Whitaker Enterprises. Dad's right-hand girl, since I could forge his signature on allowance checks. We'd built that real estate conglomerate from a single Brooklyn brownstone into a skyline-dominating beast. Hotels. Luxury condos. The works. Dad called me his secret weapon, the one who crunched numbers while he schmoozed senators. Mom? She was the socialite glue. Hosting galas that greased every wheel in the city. Then came the audit. Some pencil pusher from the SEC sniffed around our books. And bam, millions gone. Siphoned into dummy corporations that looked suspiciously like Dad's golf buddies' pet projects. But it wasn't him. It was my brother, Ethan, the charming fuckwit who'd always played second fiddle. He'd been skimming for years, funneling cash to fund his coke habit and that string of mistresses who looked like they stepped out of a bad 80s music video. I found the ledgers first, hidden in a USB drive he left in the conference room like a dumbass breadcrumb. I could have turned him in, watched him fry while I played the loyal daughter. But family, right? Blood's thicker than the Hudson. So I covered for him. Falsified reports. Rerouted transactions to make it look like I'd greenlit the whole mess during a rogue trading spree. I took the fall. 2 years in federal white-collar prison upstate. The kind with yoga classes and therapy dogs to make you forget you're caged. Ethan got a slap on the wrist, community service, a tearful interview on 60 Minutes where he vowed to rebuild the family legacy. Mom? She visited once. In pearls and a cashmere sweater, whispering through the plexiglass. This is for the best. Haley. Ethan's got the charisma for this world. You think too much. Dad died 6 months in of a heart attack. They said, but I knew it was shame. Or maybe just the scotch. Out on good behavior. I vanished. No tearful reunions. No welcome home, barbecue in the Hamptons. I changed my name to Haley Reed, anonymous enough to blend into the Rust Belt grit of Pittsburgh, where I waitressed at a dive bar called the Rusty Anchor, slinging IPAs to steelworkers who tipped in loose change and life advice. But I didn't sleep. I schemed. Used my prison-honed hacking skills, picked up from a cellmate who swore by Kali Linux, to burrow back into Whitaker servers. Piece by piece, I siphoned assets, shell companies in Delaware, crypto wallets tied to offshore trusts. By year 3, I'd clawed back 30% of the empire, all under the radar. Ethan thought he was untouchable, expanding into Miami high-rises while Mom planned her comeback galas. They had no idea the ghost in their machine was me. The invite came like a bad joke, engraved cardstock, gold embossed. For Evelyn Whitaker's 60th birthday spectacular at the Grand Pavilion, our flagship hotel in Midtown. Family only, it read, with a P.S. From Mom, Can't wait to see you shine again. Darling. Shine? I'd been grinding in grease traps while they toasted Ethan's turnaround. I almost burned it. But this was my shot, the hook to reel them all in. I flew coach to JFK, rented a beat-up Civic that smelled like wet dog, and showed up in a thrift store sheath dress that screamed, trying too hard. The pavilion was a monument to excess, marble floors veined like cracked ice, chandeliers dripping Swarovski that could have fed a family for a year. Valet took my keys with a pitying glance, and the hostess, some Botoxed intern, scanned the list twice before herding me to a folding table in the corner, right by the kitchen doors. Staff overflow, she muttered, like I was the help. I sat there, napkin in lap, as silver platters of foie gras and heirloom tomatoes sailed past. The clink of crystal toasting Ethan's latest deal, a Times Square penthouse flip that netted 8 figures. Mom held court at the head table, radiant in sapphire silk, surrounded by socialites who'd ghosted me post-scandal. Ethan flanked her, arm around his latest arm candy, a influencer type with lips like overripe cherries. He caught my eye across the room, smirked, and raised his flute, champagne bubbles mocking the flat ginger ale in my plastic cup. To family, he mouthed, before turning back to whisper something that made his date giggle. The servers nodded at me sympathetically, one slipping me an extra roll like I was their broke cousin. I smiled, teeth gritted, and waited. The first act of my revenge was subtle, the punch bowl. I'd laced it with a cocktail of my own design. Nothing lethal. Just a designer nootropic from a dark webcam lab, mixed with a dash of scopolamine derivative to loosen tongues without the blackout. Tasteless, odorless. Hits in 20 minutes. I watched as they circulated. Mom sipping daintily, Ethan guzzling like it was Gatorade. By the salad course, the room hummed with loose lips, old grudges airing like dirty laundry. Uncle Ted confessing to that '92 affair with the pool boy. Laughter at first, then uneasy shifts. I stood then, glass in hand, and weaved through the tables like I owned the joint, which, technically, I did. 30%. Remember? Enough to call shots if I played it right. A toast, I called, voice cutting through the chatter like a knife through wedding cake. Heads turned, confusion rippling. Mom's eyes widened, recognition dawning like a hangover. Haley, sweetheart, what are you? To betrayals, I said, loud enough for the mic'd band to falter. The kind that bury daughters alive while sons play king. Gasps rippled. Forks clattering. Ethan choked on his sip, face paling under the spray tan. What the hell is this? He barked. But his words slurred, the chem kicking in. I smiled, slow and sharp. This is reclamation. That's when I dropped the first bomb, the ledgers. Projected on the massive screen behind the head table, hijacked via the hotel's AV system, I'd uploaded scans of every falsified entry. Timestamps linking straight to Ethan's login. You thought I took the fall for Dad's sins, I said, voice steady as the Hudson in flood. But Dad was clean. You weren't. The room exploded, shouts. Mom's hand fluttering to her pearls like they could choke back the truth. Ethan lunged for the projector remote, but 2 security guys on my payroll, discreetly wired, held him back. You bitch, he hissed, eyes wild. You set me up from the start. Did I? The chem made him blurt it. But the seed was there. I'd known about his schemes for months before the audit. Confronted him in our old treehouse, bourbon on his breath, promising reform if I covered. But deep down, yeah, I'd nudged the dominoes. A anonymous tip to the SEC. Routed through a VPN in Bucharest. Just enough to trigger the probe. Because Ethan had always been the favorite, the boy who got the trust fund bump. The board seat. While I scrapped for scraps. Betrayal? It ran both ways. Mom collapsed into her chair, sobbing theatrically. Haley.
Why?
We're family. But her eyes, sharp as ever, flicked to the exits. Calculating damage control. The guests murmured. Phones out. Live tweeting the Whitaker implosion. Socialites who'd once unfriended me now live streamed. Hashtags like Whitaker down trending before dessert. I let it burn, savoring the smoke. But revenge isn't a monologue. It's a dance. And Ethan was about to step on my toes. Ethan's denial came fast and filthy, the chem turning his silver tongue to gravel. She's lying. Haley's the one who cooked the books, jealous little psycho. Always has been. He jabbed a finger at me, veins bulging like the I-95 in rush hour. And for a split second, the room teetered. Mom clutched his arm, nodding furiously. Yes. Yes, your sister's unstable.
Poor thing.
Prison broke her. The socialites bought it hook, line, and Louboutin, sympathetic coos rippling like a bad perm. Even the band struck up a jaunty swing number, as if Muzak could drown out the fracture. I could have let it slide, walked out with my head high and my offshore millions intact. But no, this was America, baby, land of the grudge and home of the score settling. I pull my phone, thumb the app I'd coded in a dingy motel room off I-76, and hit send. The screen flickered again, this time pulling up email chains, Ethan's desperate pleas to shell company lawyers, begging them to backdate transfers. Make it look like Haley's signature, one read, timestamped 2:17 a.m. After a bender. Gasps turned to outrage. A dowager in fox fur fainting into her escargot. That's when the cops showed NYPD. 2 detectives in ill-fitting suits I'd tipped off via an encrypted line. No sirens, just a quiet cuffing as Ethan thrashed, screaming about framed by my own blood. Mom wailed like a widow at a mob funeral. But her grip on the pearls? White-knuckled. Calculating the headlines. Evelyn Whitaker's son arrested at her birthday bash. Empire in tatters.
Yeah.
That'd play in the Post like a greatest hit. They dragged him out past the coat check, his date trailing with a Vuitton clutched like a shield. The party deflated, guests slipping away like rats from a sinking yacht, whispering about that Whitaker girl like I was the villain in a Lifetime movie. But I wasn't done. Not by a Long Island iced tea. As the valet scrambled for Ubers, I cornered Mom in the powder room, mirrors multiplying her mascara streaks into a funhouse of regret. You knew, I said, voice low, the echo off the marble like a confessional. She dabbed at her eyes. Chanel no. 5 clashing with the bleached tang of regret. Knew what? Haley, that your brother was. Troubled? Of course. But you were always so strong. You could have handled it like I was the family mule, bred to haul their shit uphill. And Dad? You let him die thinking I'd betrayed him. Her laugh was brittle, like autumn leaves under tires. Your father was a drunk, darling. The heart attack? Karma for ignoring me all those years.
Karma.
The word hung there, heavy as the humidity in July.
See?
Mom had her own secrets, affairs that funded her charity galas. Lovers who weren't just donors. I dug those up too. During my Pittsburgh purgatory, scrolling LexisNexis on a cracked laptop while the Anchor's jukebox wailed Springsteen. One paramour? Senator Hargrove. The same prick who'd fast-tracked Ethan's pardon.
Tit for tat.
In D.C.
Style.
I could have exposed her right there. Screenshotted scandals beaming to every iPhone in the tri-state. But controversy's a blade, cuts both ways. Instead, I offered a deal. Sign over the pavilion.
Tonight.
Or the world sees Evelyn Whitaker's little black book. Her eyes narrowed, the socialite mask cracking to reveal the shark beneath. Blackmail? From my own daughter? But her hand trembled on the Mont Blanc she pulled from her clutch. 10 minutes later, deeds transferred via a notary I'd bribed in the lobby, my first brick in the reclamation wall. By midnight, the pavilion was mine. Not just the deed, the soul. I fired the staff who'd seated me with the servers. Hired a crew from my underground network. Ex-cons with MBAs. Hackers who'd trade in favors. We scrubbed the ledgers clean by dawn. Rebranding the joint as Reed Residences, my initials, my empire rising from Whitaker ashes. Mom slunk back to the penthouse. Ethan to a holding cell that smelled like piss and broken dreams.
Me?
I crashed in the bridal suite, thread count sheets a far cry from prison cot, toasting myself with the remnants of the tainted punch. Sweet victory, with a bitter afterburn. But revenge is a boomerang, they say. And mine was arcing back faster than a tweet storm. 2 weeks later, the fallout hit like a nor'easter. TMZ ran loops of the arrest, grainy cell phone footage of Ethan's perp walk. Me in the foreground like Lady Justice with a grudge. Haley the Avenger trended. Half the internet crowning me a badass whistleblower. The other half dubbing me prison princess, a vengeful harpy who'd shank her own kin. Talk shows booked me. Kelly Ripa wanted to sit down. But I ghosted. Holed up in a Soho loft I bought cash under the table. The real estate world buzzed. Whitaker stock tanked 40%. Vultures circling for the carcass. I swooped in quietly, snapping up distressed assets through proxies. Condos in Chelsea. A mall in Jersey that Ethan had over-leveraged. Mom called daily. Voice syrupy with feigned contrition. Come home, Haley. Let's heal this family.
Heal?
Like slapping a Band-Aid on a gut wound. I played along, feeding her crumbs, a lunch at Le Bernardin where I grilled her on the old days, probing for weak spots. That's when she flipped, subtle at first. A lawyer's letter claiming I'd forged the pavilion transfer under duress. Duress my ass, she'd signed with a flourish. Witnesses galore. But the suit named me as the mastermind behind the original embezzlement, twisting my cover-up into a full-blown conspiracy. You started this fire, Haley, her attorney sneered in deposition. Ethan was just warming his hands, bastards. They'd lawyered up with the best, white shoe firm on Park Avenue, the kind that ate juniors for breakfast. I countered with my own pit bull, a pro bono shark from legal aid who'd owed me from a bar hack. Discovery unearthed gold, Ethan's therapy notes, scribbled admissions of sister sabotage to fund his highs. Mom's emails to Hargrove, begging favors in exchange for discreet evenings. The judge, a grizzled Brooklynite with no patience for blue bloods, slapped sanctions on them. But not before the press feasted. Whitaker Civil War, siblings battle for billions, screamed the journal. I thrived on the chaos. Reed Residences boomed, eco-luxury vibe. Solar panels on the pavilion's roof, drawing influencers who once snubbed me. Pittsburgh faded to a bad dream. I hired a chef for the loft, stocked the bar with top-shelf rye. But nights, they clawed at me. Dreams of Dad's funeral, closed casket. Mom dry-eyed beside Ethan's crocodile tears. I'd wake sweating, the weight of that USB drive like a stone in my gut. Had I pushed too far?
Nah.
They deserved it.
Didn't they?
Ethan's trial loomed like a storm front. Federal fraud. Money laundering. The works. I testified, crisp in a theory suit, laying out the timeline cool as a cucumber. Jurors nodded, eating up my devoted sister act. But cross-exam, his lawyer, a silver fox with a Yale drawl, eviscerated me. MS. Reed, or should I say Whitaker, you admit to falsifying documents. Covering for your brother. Isn't that aiding and abetting? The courtroom held its breath, a fly buzzing louder than the truth. I met his eyes. Steady. I admit to loving my family. Something you wouldn't understand. Acquittal? No. Guilty on all counts. 10 years in Otisville. Minimum security with tennis courts. Mom visited him weekly, but skipped my victory lap. I bought the old brownstone Dad started with, gutted it into a boutique hotel, Haley's Hideaway, marketed as redemption in brick and mortar. Bookings poured in, celebs fleeing paparazzi for my authentic vibe. Life was good. Too good? The twist came on a sticky August afternoon, subpoena in hand. Not from Ethan, from the feds. Turns out, Mom had flipped too. Cut a deal to testify against me in exchange for immunity on her own indiscretions. You think you're the spider? Her deposition video sneered. Played in a sterile FBI conference room. Darling, I've been spinning webs since before you were born. That USB? I planted it. Knew you'd take the bait. Always the fixer. My little Haley. Planted it. The room spun. Fluorescent buzz like angry hornets. She'd orchestrated the whole damn thing, not just Ethan's fall,
But mine.
to consolidate power. Merge Whitaker with Hargrove's conglomerate. Sideline us both as ungrateful brats. Dad's death. Convenient timing. His will contested on mental incapacity, grounds she'd whispered to doctors. I was the patsy, the scapegoat for her empire grab. Rage boiled. Black and tarry. But here's the controversial bit. Part of me admired it. Ruthless. American dream style. Eat or be eaten. From sea to shining C-suite. I could have raged, leaked her deal to the press, watched her crumble. Instead, I met her at the brownstone. Under renovation scaffolds. Dust motes dancing in the sun like confetti. Truce, she said, extending a manicured hand. No apology. Just business. I took it, squeezing till her rings bit skin. One condition. We merge. Reed Whitaker. But I run point. Her smile was a serpent's, proud, possessive. Welcome home.
CEO.
Was it victory? Or just the next betrayal queued up? The wedding mine. To a venture capitalist who'd wooed me with blockchain promises happened there, amid the fresh plaster. Mom walked me down the aisle. Ethan Skyped from prison, toasting with contraband hooch. Guests whispered, hero or villain, saint or sinner. Hell if I knew. But as the knife cut the cake, I felt the weight lift. Or maybe it was just settling deeper. The merger ink dried on a crisp October morning. Boardroom, one of the newly minted Reed Whitaker Tower, a glass phallus piercing the Manhattan fog like a middle finger to doubters. I sat at the head, pantsuit tailored sharp as a stiletto, signing off on the bylaws that made me Queen Bee. Mom, Evelyn now, co-chair with a smile like saccharine, flanked me. Her Hargrove connections already funneling deals from DC
To Dubai.
to new beginnings, she toasted, flute bubbling like suppressed laughter. The bored, hand-picked mix of my Pittsburgh grinders and her old guard, clinked glasses, the clatter echoing off windows that framed the Empire State like a has-been rival. Outside, the city thrummed, yellow cabs honking gridlock anthems, street vendors hawking chestnuts that smelled like nostalgia and regret. Inside, power plays, subtle as a subway grope. Mom's first move, poach my eco-initiatives. Rebrand them as Evelyn's Green Legacy, her face plastered on Forbes like a Botox ad. I let it slide, controversy brews slow, and I needed her Rolodex to scale. But whispers started. Haley's the hatchet girl. But Evelyn's the visionary. Pundits on CNBC debated it, splitting screens between my rags to redemption arc and her timeless grace. Twitter? A battlefield, girl boss Haley versus Evelyn Empire. Memes of me as a vengeful Cruella, her as the ice queen who'd melt you with a glance. Ethan's appeals dragged. Holiday cards from Otisville scrawled with passive-aggressive pleas. Miss you.
Sis.
Mom says hi, says you're killing it. Don't forget who started the fire. I burned them in the loft's fireplace. Flames licking the ink like absolution. My husband, Jake, tech bro with a man bun and a moral compass calibrated to ROI, tried to play therapist over quinoa bowls. Babe. Therapy? You've got layers like an onion. But this one's gonna make you cry. I laughed it off. But his touch felt like pity. The ring on my finger a shackle disguised as sparkle. Winter hit hard. Blizzards burying the Hamptons like unresolved grudges. We hosted the holiday gala at the Pavilion, now Reed Residences, festooned with LED icicles and a jazz quartet swinging. White Christmas like it was bebop. A-listers packed the joint. Beyoncé's cousin. That Hemsworth brother nobody remembers. I worked the room in emerald velvet. Jake orbiting like a dutiful drone. But Mom stole the spotlight, announcing a family foundation for incarcerated entrepreneurs, a blatant nod to Ethan that reeked of PR spin. Guests ate it up. Toasting her, heart of gold. My stomach turned. I slipped to the balcony. City lights blurring through frost-lace glass. That's where the second flip happened. A burner phone buzzed in my clutch, anonymous text. Check the Caymans. Evelyn's slush fund. Not yours alone. Heart slamming like a jackhammer. I ducked into the bridal suite. Laptop open before the door clicked shut. VPN up. Blockchain dive. There it was. A wallet fat with crypto. Transactions timestamped to Mom's charity galas. But the beneficiary? Not Whitaker. Hargrove Holdings, Senator's firm. Laundering lobby cash through our books. She'd been playing us all along. Me as the front. Ethan as the fall guy. Dad as collateral. The merger? A Trojan horse to bleed Reed dry. Fury crested. Hot and tidal. I could have nuked it, FBI tip. Headlines screaming, Whitaker matriarch in money launder scandal. But the twist nod. Those funds? Half traced to scholarships for kids like my prison pals, ex-cons coding their way out of the gutter. Mom's hypocrisy? Or twisted redemption? I paced the suite. Heels sinking into the Aubusson like quicksand. Jake's texts piling up. Where are you? Guests asking.
Screw the guests.
Dawn broke gray and unforgiving. I confronted her in the penthouse kitchen, Marble Island strewn with kale smoothies and betrayal. The Caymans, I said. No preamble. Phone thrust like a loaded Glock. Her face didn't crack, just a sigh. Weary as a long-haul trucker. Sit. Haley. It's not what you think. Not what I thought. She poured coffee, black as sin, and spun the yarn. Hargrove's dirty money. Yes, but she'd rerouted it post-dad. Funding bail funds. Addiction clinics. Ethan's mess inspired it. And yours.
Well,
You gave me the blueprint. Blueprint. My cover-up. Weaponized for good? Or laundering with a halo? We talked till noon. Sun slicing through blinds like Judgment Day. She admitted planting the USB, not to trap me, but to force a reckoning. Scare Ethan straight before the SEC sniffed. You were collateral. Darling. Strongest soldier I had. Collateral. The word tasted like battery acid. But her eyes, wet for the first time, held no lie. Finish it, if you must. But think, who wins? The family fractures again. Or we build something real? Controversy incarnate. I walked out. Wind whipping off the reservoir. Leaves skittering like fleeing accomplices. Jake waited at the loft. Concern creasing his brow like bad origami. Babe, talk to me. I did, halting. The words tumbling like dice in a Vegas high roller suite. He listened. Then, sounds like Stockholm. Hails. She's toxic. But was she, or was I the echo? Repeating the cycle? The decision came in fragments. A board vote where I greenlit the foundation. Rebranded neutral. A visit to Otisville. Ethan gaunt behind Plexi. Ranting about mom's games. She flipped on me too.
sis.
We're pawns.
Pawns.
The word echoed as I drove back. Jersey Turnpike a blur of billboards promising escape. I filed the IRS tip anonymously, enough to audit Hargrove. Not torch mom. Senator resigned in disgrace. Headlines praising anonymous whistleblower. Me. Ghosting again. Mom called that night. Voice thick. Thank you. No more. No less. Spring thawed the grudges. Cherry blossoms papering Central Park like pink forgiveness. Reed Whitaker soared. Sustainable towers in Queens. Affordable housing that didn't suck. Jake and I adopted a mutt from the pound. Named him Ledger. Irony thick as fog. But the dreams lingered. Dad's ghost in the boardroom. Ethan's cuffs clinking like wind chimes. Mom and I, détente, brunch at St. Ambrius. Dissecting deals over Eggs Benedict. Her barbs blunted. My armor lighter. Yet the tension simmered. A pot on low boil. Ethan's appeal hearing loomed. Rumors of a bombshell witness. And me? I stared at the skyline from my corner office, wondering if ownership was chains or wings. The city didn't answer, just hummed on. Indifferent as ever. Summer scorched in like a grudge match. Asphalt shimmering off the FDR like a bad acid trip. The appeal hearing was set for a sweltering July afternoon in Foley Square. Federal courthouse, a concrete bunker that swallowed secrets whole. I prepped like a prizefighter. Dossiers on Ethan's prison connections. Psych evals painting him as reformed. Mom pushed for leniency, he's family. Haley. But her eyes darted, scheming under the veneer. Jake begged off. This is Whitaker poison.
Babe.
Stay out. But blood's a magnet, pulling me south through traffic that crawled like regret. The gallery packed, reporters in cheap suits. Rubberneckers chasing scandal porn. Ethan entered in orange that clashed with his pallor. Shackles whispering like old lovers. He spotted me, nodded gratitude, or calculation. The judge. A no-nonsense Latina with a gavel like Thor's hammer. Called order. Prosecution rehashed the fraud, ledgers, lies, the punch bowl punchline. Then Ethan's lawyer rose, silk-voiced. Your Honor, new evidence exonerates my client. The true architect? Ms. Haley Whitaker herself. My gut dropped faster than the Dow in '08. The witness, my old cellmate, Lena, the Cali queen who taught me code. She'd cut a deal, testifying in a pantsuit too tight for her frame. Haley bragged about it. She drawled, Brooklyn thick in her vowels. Said she tipped the SEC, framed her brother to take the fall. Even spiked that party punch, tried to slip me the recipe in a conjugal visit. Lies. Most of it, but seeded with truth. I'd vented to her. Prison bars breeding confessionals. The chem recipe? A half-joke over commissary ramen. Chaos erupted. Flashes popping. Mom gasping theatrically beside me. Ethan met my eyes. A flicker of triumph. He'd orchestrated this. Prison smarts sharpened by spite. See? Sis, he mouthed. Your move. The judge banged for recess. Bailiffs herding us out like cattle. In the hall, Mom cornered me, breath mints masking the panic. What have you done?
Me?
This was her web. Threads tangling us all. I bolted, subpoena be damned, hailed a cab to the loft. Jake's keychain jangling like accusations. He was packing, suitcase half-zipped. Saw the news. This family's a black hole. Hails. I'm out.
Out.
The word landed like a sucker punch. His man bun bobbing as he zipped the last pocket. Love you. But I can't drown with you. Door clicked shut. Echo hollow as a bounce check. Alone. I cracked the balcony rail. Skyline mocking me. Lights winking like conspirators. The feds came at dusk, 2 suits with badges that gleamed like false hope. Obstruction. MS.
Read. Perjury.
That punch wasn't just party favors. I lawyered up, my shark circling. But the noose tightened, wiretaps from Ethan's cell. My voice blurry but damning. He deserves it. Lena. For Dad. Context? Butchered in transcript. Mom flipped again, publicly disavowing me on CNN. Tears glistening under studio lights. My daughter. Lost her way. We're praying for her. Praying. For ratings. More like. Trial blitz, me in the dock. Orange a cruel echo of Ethan's. Gallery split, feminists chanting Free Haley, outside. Tradcons decrying family destroyer. Lena crumbled on cross, admitting coercion for a reduced sentence, but damage stuck like gum on hot pavement. Ethan testified last. Voice steady. She hated me for being the favorite. Set me up to steal the company. Lies layered on half-truths. I had nudged.
Yes.
But his schemes were gospel. Mom's turn. Haley's brilliant, but broken. I covered for her, like she once did for Ethan. Family does that. The twist landed like a gut shot. Her testimony revealed the Cayman's fund, not as virtue, but as my entrapment scheme. She'd planted evidence there too, framing me as the launderer to force my hand in the merger. I wanted her close, she wept. To save her from herself.
Save?
Or control. Jurors shifted. Faces a mosaic of doubt. Who was the spider now?
Me.
The betrayed avenger turned tyrant? Her. The matriarch martyr? Ethan. The prodigal pawn? Verdict. Hung jury. 3 holdouts for acquittal. Mistrial declared. Retrial pending. But the real bomb? Ethan's deal. Testify against Mom for his freedom. exposing Hargrove ties as mutual. He walked. Probation. A smirk as he passed my table. Thanks for the push.
Sis.
Blood's thicker. Mom, indicted that night. Cuffs clicking like karma's castanets. I vanished again, not Pittsburgh grit, but Belize anonymity. Beach shack with waves whispering absolution. Reed Whitaker dissolved in asset fire sale. Pieces snapped up by vultures. Jake? Divorced papers forwarded. Alimony waived. No hard feelings. Lonely?
Yeah.
But free. In that hollow American way. Last hook, a postcard from Mom. Postmarked Otisville, her new address. Irony's encore. Proud of you. Always. Finish the story. I burned it on the sand. Embers dancing like fireflies. Happy ending? Tragic farce? You tell me. The Empire's dust. But the grudge? Eternal. Like the skyline's glow. Who owned the place? Turns out, nobody. Just ghosts. Haunting the view. In the end, revenge wasn't the crown, it was the noose we all tied together. And damn if it didn't fit just right.